Hi everyone, my name's MadMatt Lugos. Welcome back to Life is Strange 2, Episode 5, Wolves. So last time we had to leave the a little away community, had some very kind of sad goodbyes. We got a bit of even more catharsis with Karen. We left her a nice letter. We gave her a big hug, um, and we made it to the border wall or fence or whatever it is. When we got to the wall, Daniel had to blow a hole in it instead of just lifting us over in the car, which I thought would have been much more useful. But he had to blow a hole in it, but we got caught by some bounty hunters, I think they were, or just a side illegal patrol, I guess, who shot Daniel from a distance, just grazed his arm, but he passed out from the shock and the pain. And then the real border patrol found us. And Sean, stupidly I suppose, called out to Daniel using his name, and then he clocked who we were. And now we're in jail. Not in prison, we're in jail. So we're in, I assume, the border patrol station while they're waiting for the feds to come and collect us. So we're going to be separate from Daniel. I think there might, I don't know how, if they're going to do a decision like this, but there might be a decision we have to make where we can turn ourselves in and take the blame for everything that happened and exonerate Daniel, right? Either through turning ourselves in or escaping to Mexico ourselves, but leaving Daniel in the custody of the police, because they're not going to convict him. They think we're the guilty one, right? And then we might have to leave Daniel. And then he'll go into foster care, I'd imagine, or he'd go and live with Karen if she's not being charged with anything, if they don't accuse her of arson or anything for burning down that church. So yeah, let's see how things develop. Arizona, 6 a.m., the 4th of July. God is something. Non-existent, maybe it said that. Maybe this would be a good point for Sean to develop his own powers. Hello? Mexicans. Hey! There's that sassy bin. Hello!
Don't look at me.
Or what?
¿Estás bien?
Sí.
Look at her.
Yo soy Diego. Mi esposa Carla. Y este frijolito de aquí es...
Pregnant. Damn.
Es Ángel.
Oh, Ángela.
Encantado. Soy Sean.
¿Cómo te sientes, hijo?
¿Han visto un niño de 10 años? Es mi hermanito. Nos separaron cerca del muro. Está herido.
Lo llevaron a la enfermería. Si fuera grave, una ambulancia ya habría venido a buscarlo. Si lo dejaron aquí, quiere decir que está bien.
Tranquilo, amigo. Aquí no hacen daño a los niños.
No way I can break through that door without Daniel's help.
Paperwork. Then we're out and we're not coming back.
Ugh, this place is fucking gross.
Yeah, nice camouflage, mate. You need to use the whole outfit, you know? Look at this idiot. He's got forest camouflage on just his fat torso in the desert. I mean, and a bandana.
So tired of all this shit.
What a moron.
When will we get a break?
Is Daryl watching the kids?
Thanks. I'll remember that.
Nothing can replace the euphoria of healthy body and real friendship.
No. He worked a double shift today. His sister's got him.
Good. She's a good kid. And she's more patient than your husband.
This guy must be trained not to listen to anything we say. What the hell is wrong with these people?
¿Cómo estás, cariño?
I wonder how long they've been here.
Me duele la espalda.
And why?
Apóyate aquí si quieres.
Tranquilo, amor. No soy de porcelana.
Okay, now we can speak.
¿Saben cuánto tiempo nos van a dejar aquí?
No,
Esta es la primera vez que intentan cruzar. Me acuerdo de nuestra primera vez. Casi morimos de sed en el desierto.
Let's not be aggressive. The triangle, we aren't illegal, seems a little... Let's just tell them we're trying to go the other way.
En realidad, queremos llegar a México.
¿A México? No mames. ¿Pero por qué? Entonces son gringos.
Sí, nacimos aquí, pero ahora tenemos que irnos.
todos estamos escapando de algo.
Es la tercera vez que intentamos cruzar la frontera.
Why?
¿Por qué necesitan cruzar tan desesperadamente?
Por las mismas razones que todos. No pudimos soportar la inseguridad ni la miseria.
En México, la violencia tiene muchas formas. No se puede vivir así.
Cuando mi hermano fue secuestrado y asesinado por una pandilla, nos fuimos. Si hubiésemos podido quedarnos, nos habríamos quedado en nuestro pueblo, pero queremos darle una vida mejor a nuestro hijo o hija.
That's what my dad did.
Es lo que hizo mi papá. Se fue de México cuando murieron sus padres para ganarse la vida. Pero yo sé que extrañaba su pueblo natal.
Por supuesto. Pero seguro que tuvo sus razones para irse. Como nosotros.
No quiero desanimarte, amigo, pero lo de México no va a ser fácil para ustedes.
Yeah, we know.
Es un país magnífico y me cuesta muchísimo dejarlo, pero allá va a ser muy complicado cumplir tus sueños.
Ya no tengo sueños aquí.
Sean, has vivido en este país toda tu vida con un padre mexicano. Y ahora los tiempos han cambiado. Ay, ¿cómo crees que va a ser todo en el futuro?
What, so she's asking what the tension is, the societal tension is like between Americans and Mexican Americans slash Mexicans who've moved there, Mexican immigrants. I mean, there's no absolute answer to this, right? It depends which state you're in, doesn't it? There's likely to be more prejudice in the border states, right? So southern Arizona, South Texas, all those kind of places that are on the border, it's likely going to be more difficult. You're gonna, like in California, there are Mexican communities, but then they have a lot of the problems that they're talking about in Mexico in terms of violence and gangs because of police prejudice and stuff like that. Whereas where Sean was in Washington, you'd probably say was a bit better. All his friends were white American, weren't they? Where he was in Seattle, right? So, like he was integrated. Yeah, let's just say I don't think it's pessimistic. I think most places have problems with large scale immigration. You know, every country does when if it happens. When there are large scale communities, right? I mean, it's happened here with there's been large scale immigration from lots of different countries to England, and you know, nothing's perfect. You're always going to get bigots and xenophobia. But I guess in the political setting of this game, it's definitely more of a pessimistic take on it, isn't it? With the I've just forgotten what the American political party, your equivalent of the Conservatives anyway, the Republicans. They're a more conservative party, aren't they? But I guess it's different with immigration in America, isn't it? Just because you're like, if you're American, your country is so big. It's so big. There's just so much space, isn't there? And I understand overpopulation is a problem maybe in like New York, maybe in Los Angeles, but for most of America, I don't think overpopulation is really a problem. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but the country is so vast. Whereas like here, our country is so small, overpopulation, and in Europe in general is more of a major concern because there's just not enough space. The prices of housing going up, and cities and congestion, traffic congestion and stuff are more prevalent throughout the country as a whole, perhaps. That it's and you know, when with certain things being more state dependent, like the NHS, it becomes a bit of a logistical nightmare with an increasing population and an aging population. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I just feel like there's a lot of space in America, isn't there? Let's just say it's getting better.
Los tiempos cambian, pero la gente también. En el camino encontré muchos aliados. Ojalá haya menos personas intolerantes en el futuro.
Ojalá.
Cuando eres extranjero, tienes que trabajar aún más duro para arreglártelas. Así funciona.
Oh, shit. Enough now. It's America. We speak English.
You definitely
just
don't speak
talking.
English, though.
No, the problem is you people breaking into my country.
We come here to work, not steal or live at your home.
Diego.
No, I am so fucking tired. You only come here to cause trouble. And
Ugh.
we have to pay for your welfare. You all want a free ride, and that makes me sick.
We only want
no.
work and in peace.
Yes. An honest job and the ability to raise our child in a safe country. That's all we're looking for.
That's what you people always say. But the facts speak for themselves.
You're a bigot.
Your facts are just bigotry and hatred.
Yeah, I hate what you did to my country. Our borders, we have a right to protect our sovereign nation, and we will.
Damn right, baby girl.
You hunt us like animals.
I don't think I have a choice. I want the safest country for my children.
See? You love your family like us. We don't go walking hundreds of miles in the desert and risking everything for no reason. We do it for our child. A mother must understand.
No, you and your unborn parasite have nothing in common with me and my family.
What?
Maddie,
What you say?
Oh, see? There you go.
take it easy.
This is all.
Calm him down.
Siéntate, Diego. Solo vas a empeorar las cosas para
Yeah.
ustedes.
Don't
Tienes
present.
razón, amor. No valen la pena.
Whether you people like it or not, we're not gonna give you a break.
You're in jail too.
Yeah,
Loser.
moron. Wow. I love the way you woke up.
Wow, we stuck down here with them? You know us. We're helping you, goddammit!
Hey, you have the right to remain silent, so fucking use it, okay?
All right.
Diaz, you're up.
How's my brother?
Don't worry about him. Now turn around. Hands behind your back.
Good luck to you two.
Okay? Let's move it.
It's the Matrix. What's going
All
on?
right. Sit down.
Where's my brother?
He's doing fine for a kid who got grazed by a bullet. Lost some blood. But he's tough. They're taking care of him at the infirmary. You want coffee?
Okay.
Good. Be right back.
Thank you.
Fuck. What did they do with Daniel? I hope he's alright. No point in getting these off.
No.
There are cops everywhere. Great. Now I can put on a fucking show.
Why do you care?
Shit. Is it morning already? Haven't seen Daniel since yesterday.
No, or never.
How am I gonna get myself out of this mess?
There's no lake in the cross.
Well, good job then. You went to jail instead. You're gonna be a great mom.
Shut up!
Hope Daniel doesn't freak out in here.
Be like that, Mamacita. You understand?
Yeah, what I was saying before, I'm not saying like that I'm anti-immigration in this country. I'm just, there's just
Illegal. I'm a sovereign citizen. Open up.
sovereign.
Hey.
What are you babbling about now? Do you ever just not yell? It's been a long fucking night. We're all sick of your shit. If I have to come back here again, you're going to solitary. Got it?
There you go. Looks like you need it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Captain Red Hair.
All right. Let's see.
Campbell.
Okay. Damn. Seriously?
Yeah,
No.
coffee's gonna make me feel so much better.
Give me more, give me
These still
more.
keep me up.
Jeez. That's quite a crime spree. It's hard to believe what kids can do nowadays. Killing that officer in Seattle, assaulting a gas station clerk. Caught in another weird explosion at a pot farm in California. Then you join a religious commune in Nevada. Oh, which ends up burnt to the ground. And we're not even halfway down the list. One of those things you could get away with. But not all that.
Can you explain, dude?
It sounds crazy, but I can explain.
Explain it to Agent Flores.
Uh-oh.
She's on her way now. She spoke to your mother, who took responsibility for the church fire.
Let's not contradict stories, because that often gets you in trouble, doesn't it? She says a lot.
She says a lot. Who cares? You don't have any proof? Don't drag her into this, okay? She's a good person.
Hey, it's not up to me, kid. Listen, I feel sorry for you. I really do.
Don't need your pity.
Denying what you did will only make things worse.
It wasn't my fault.
It wasn't my fault. All I did was try to survive.
Yeah, I guess you did. You know, I read the report. You claim that Officer Matthews' death was an accident, so why didn't you wait for the police?
No one would believe it.
No one would have believed what happened. We didn't either.
Well, it's too late now. Your case is filled to the brim with evidence. Good news is, your brother's too young to be prosecuted. He'll end up with your grandparents, if they want him. But you're facing a shitload of years between bars. At least he'll get a life.
Uh-oh, he's breaking out. Daniel's waking up.
What I don't get is how two kids can destroy so much stuff. I mean, anywhere you went, something blew up. Seriously. How?
This is... Neither of these answers make a difference to the... They're both the same thing. We're supervillains.
What do you want me to say? We're supervillains. We can't help but destroy shit.
Yeah, right. I bet the judge will love this. Maybe he'll give you special treatment. Whoa!
Yeah, you're in for some special treatment, buddy.
Sir? I don't think you should...
Keep your ass in that seat.
Oh, he's dead.
Sean!
You okay? How do you feel?
I'm okay. Just a little headache. Hold on. Dude, we gotta go.
Hold up.
Is he okay? I wanted to rescue you, but I had to use my power. I didn't want to hurt him.
He's okay. Don't worry.
Get his keys.
Come on, we gotta go.
Nothing's personal, dude.
Estoy aquí.
We gotta get Diego out, right?
Who are these people?
Well, Carla and Diego. They came all the way from Mexico. And God, shall we try to make peace with these morons? Well, Carla and Diego. They came all the way from Mexico.
Let's bust them
And
out.
God, thrown in jail for it. As for the others, they're the ones who tried to shoot you.
What? They got locked up? Good.
Oh, go to hell. Wait, aren't you supposed to be in a hospital?
You look like crazy people. I'm glad you're locked in.
Oh, whatever. Get lost, kid.
Yeah, let's get them out.
Hold on. We're gonna get you out.
Maybe they don't want
Daniel?
to.
That's it.
Gracias. Muchas gracias.
Espérenme aquí. Until I check this out.
Of course.
Holy
mother! How'd you do that? How?
Wait, what the fuck are you?
I'm not going to do either. I'm not doing either. I don't want to take revenge and I don't want to set them free.
He's out for the count. Good thinking, Daniel.
We have to hurry, Sean.
How the fuck did you criminals get out, huh?
Okay, hands up!
Shit!
Don't shoot! Hands up!
Do not move! Wait!
Sean,
Stay back, Daniel. Let me think.
Sean, what do I do?
Quick! Gotta find something to stop them.
Multiple officers down.
Kill?
Kill Sam now.
The chair.
They're dangerous! Be careful!
We will shoot if we need to. Understand?
Fire extinguisher.
Fuck!
Don't do anything stupid, kid!
Okay, what the fuck? Do not move! This...
Throw that locker.
Oh.
Didn't want to hurt anybody anymore.
You saved us. You had no choice. Now, let's bail.
I didn't
Sean,
kill them.
I think our things are in there.
Hey,
Step
hey,
back.
what did you do? You fucking terrorists!
Don't move. I'll-
Terrorists!
Okay, but be quick.
Um,
After this, you're not gonna hunt shit anymore.
can we not take anything?
Look at that. Crime Central. They must really feel threatened to put so much effort into this.
There's probably more of them coming.
Come on, let's go then.
Let's go.
We would be so dead if we didn't have Daniel's power. Take it out, Daniel.
Que Dios los bendiga.
Okay, go, go! Let's roll, Daniel.
What about those two?
Hurry, Sean. Drive.
Mexico port of entry.
No, nobody is chasing us.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Emergency! Visit all points bulletin for every unit in the area. Multiple prisoners, 2 adults and 2 teenagers, have escaped from the El Rey police station. They are considered armed and dangerous. Repeat.
Are we still going to Mexico?
Yeah. We got nowhere else to go.
Sean, it's the 4th of July. Our first one without Dad.
Oh.
You're right.
Remember how he was so into fireworks every year? He always made us go too early so we could get a good spot.
I know. He was so corny. He said he was proud to live in his country.
Going back to the same spot, yeah? They can't have barricaded it that much.
Shit.
Whoa, what? Why did you go right to the actual entrance?
Sean?
You gotta
what are we
lift up
gonna
the
do?
car.
Sean! Sean Diaz! It's over! Don't make this worse! Get out of the car! Slow! With your hands above your head! Do exactly what I say!
What's he gonna do?
You know that day in Seattle? The day Dad was shot? I think about it every day. And I would give anything to change what happened. But I can't. I'm sorry for my mistakes. I tried my best. I swear.
Sean.
I'm so proud of you, and I know, just like Dad would be. We both learned a lot together, but you can make your own rules now. If we surrender, they will separate us, Daniel. And if that happens, promise me that you will always do the right thing, okay? Don't waste your power. Be smart like you already are.
I don't want to be separated.
Hear me out! Please! Don't make any more mistakes!
Whatever
It's
happens,
not too late to surrender!
always remember that you're Daniel Diaz.
You know this is
I promise, Sean.
a trap. You can trust me. Please, get out of the car. Come on. There's no way out. This is our last
So,
warning. Listen up.
how does the story of the Wolf brothers end?
Step out of the car. Now.
I'm gonna need a minute. So I don't know how to judge the decision because I don't know what he's going to do to get across the border. Is he going to kill the police officers? If we could just flow over, which we could blatantly do, then that'd be fine. So I guess the question is whether are we going to try and save Sean by crossing the border, or are we going to try and save Daniel by surrendering? Because if we surrender, then he's going to get to go and live with Claire and Stephen. Whereas if we cross the border, he's going to be forced to live a life of poverty and perhaps, you know, because Sean's going to have to make a living for them. So I don't know. I think that's what the decision is. I'm basically choosing between Sean's freedom and Daniel's freedom. Surrender to protect Daniel, cross the border to protect Sean. Do we believe in, and I guess it's a choice. It's a choice between America and or Mexico. We've had warnings against going to Mexico. We had David telling us about believing the truth and trust the system, I guess. That we have the truth on our side. So in that way, if we surrender and we convince the police that we weren't responsible for the death of the police officer, but then we'll still get tried for all the other crimes, right? So assaulting the guy at the gas station and the fire. Well, no, not for the fire, but and for the you know, escaping custody and all that stuff. I gotta be honest, I'm leaning towards surrender, because it feels like that's the choice that will benefit Daniel. You know, sorry, and that's what the other thing I meant to say. So we've had the Mexican couple as well warn us about life across the border, that it's a beautiful country, but it's a tough place to live. Our father fought for us to get here, and wanted to leave the country as well. He loved America. And we've just committed another crime by escaping the border guards and their little jail. I have to say, if this was myself, I don't know, you'd like to think you'd do the thing that would benefit the other person. They must be aware of the influence of that little blue thing. Do you know what I mean? That makes it look like, oh, pick this shiny thing here. You know? The other side of it is, if we surrender, is Daniel going to feel like we've abandoned him? But then he's going to get to go live with Claire and Stephen, and he's going to get to be with his best friend who lives next door, and he's going to get to live a normal life again. Whereas crossing the border, we're really going into the unknown. I feel like Karen, the voice of Karen, would push us to cross the border, because she says always pursue your freedom. You know, and chase your freedom. Whereas I feel like Esteban would want us to stay. David has told us to stay. And the Mexican couple, Diego and his missus, were kind of a mixed message. They were like, you know, we're running away from something, but it's not an easy life in Mexico. If this is the final choice of the game, I'll come back and look at the other one, obviously. If this is like a similar decision to the first game, you know, where this is like the final ultimate decision. So I guess it does, in a way, it does kind of feel like the choice represents represents our parents, doesn't it? Surrender to stay in America and face your responsibilities would be more Esteban, wouldn't it? Cross the border would be Karen, would be chasing your freedoms, running away, but as part of that you run away from your obligations and your responsibilities. You know, we're not taking responsibility for the crimes we've committed. But we're going to be condemning Sean to a life in prison, really, for who knows how long, and that's going to be tough on him for a kid his age, you know. I don't know what to do. I truly don't know what to do. I feel like we should surrender. I feel like we should we need to face the music. Daniel will be able to have as normal of a life as possible with Claire and Stephen. And he'll get to be a kid again. There's nothing to say we couldn't survive in Mexico, in Puerto Lobos. That's why I kept saying it in the Spanish accent, because I can't say it in mine. Puerto Lobos. Yeah. They've done a good job in terms of I've got all the voices of the other characters and their advice ringing around in my head. You know, Cassidy and all them, you know, traveling, pursuing their freedom, just running around, running away and away. And like Karen telling us to pursue the freedom, she said, you know, get to Mexico. But I mean, who's to say that the police won't catch up with us in Mexico? I know I'm taking a long time, I'm sorry guys, but this feels like this feels like the final decision of the game, doesn't it? Is Sean like his mother? Is this the life he wants to lead? Has he changed? I'm glad this isn't a time decision, can you imagine? I hate all the time decisions in this. Like that whole bit with the police officers crawling forward, like just why? We don't need, this game is not meant for time decisions. You know, it felt like there have been certain moments where certain characters are sort of in that sort of Samuel-esque position. And that it felt like what David was talking to us about, it felt like that, where he was giving us a real piece of precognitive type of advice, do you know what I mean? Like sort of, it's a sort of foreboding kind of piece of advice, like believe in the truth, don't just run. I've got to make a decision. Ultimately, I think I'm going to pick surrender based on the fact that Daniel is going to get to live with Claire and Stephen, and he's going to get to have as normal of a childhood as he deserves and that he's used to. He's a juvenile, he can't be tried for any crimes. No one knows exactly what happened with the police officer in Seattle, so Sean will probably take the brunt. I don't know if that's going to condemn him to some sort of life sentence, but they don't have any evidence to suggest that he killed him. I think what's going to happen is we're going to go down for the surrounding crimes, not for the murder. I could be wrong. It's weird, the game's making me feel like surrendering is the cowardly move, that we need to stick together, that we're the Wolf Brothers and all that, and we stick together at all costs, and we should just cross the border. The whole game's been building up to getting to Puerto Lobos, right? Sorry guys, I don't know what to do. The problem is right. The problem is that I think partially after playing Before the Storm really annoyed me with some of its decisions because it felt like there was one choice that was always obviously the better choice. So I'm here thinking that one choice will be better than the others, and what you know, like right or wrong. Whereas really, this choice should just be they're just different. You know what I mean? Every time I think about picking surrender now, I have Karen's voice telling me in my head, telling me to chase our freedom. And to just go anywhere in pursuit of that. Okay, guys. I think, like I've already said, based on the reason that I think Daniel will have a better life with Claire and Stephen back next door to Chris. It'll be less of a struggle for him. I think for Daniel's sake, I think we have to choose to surrender. I'm sorry if this is stupid. I know. You know, I am really torn. I do want to do both. But for those reasons, I'm going to pick surrender. Yeah.
I think their story ends right here.
Here? But I could...
You don't have to do it anymore, kid.
I get it. It's not who we are.
Exactly. We're not criminals. We're just kids. And we still have time to choose what life we want to live. You're my brother. And I love you.
I love you too, Sean.
It's gonna be alright. I promise.
Really?
You'll get to live with
How do you know?
Claire and Stephen.
Because we're doing the right thing. Just try and remember what I taught you. I mean, only the good shit.
I will. I swear.
On your knees! I said on your knees now!
I'm sorry about all this. We're gonna look after your brother. That's my word. Okay, he's ready.
Sean! No! Sean!
Oye. He's gonna be fine.
Daniel! You're not a little wolf anymore. Never forget who you are. Never.
Thought so. Oh man, how long is he going to have got in prison? August 2018. Him with Chris. June 2019. Super Wolf saves the day. April 2019 issue. Graduation 2025. David. Karen. Reunited with Claire. Job at a coffee shop. $20.33. Jesus. Moving into his first house. "15 years after the events at the border." "15 years, man." So Sean will be like 32. Couldn't have given him a more low-key fake eye, really? Why would you give him an all-white eye? That's so unnecessary. really couldn't get any voice actors to do this extra scene, really. I'm really not liking this ending. I mean, it feels more realistic, but we're not getting anything about what it was like for Sean in prison. Did Cassidy ever go visit him? Did anyone go and visit him? I mean, we got no hint about that. All we got were pictures of Daniel's life. We didn't get any insight into what life was like for Sean. Is that the end? Okay. Yeah, that's made me feel like I picked the wrong thing. But I do think... Okay. So this was the only decision. You decided to force the roadblock and Daniel accepted. You decided to force the roadblock and Daniel refused. You decided to surrender to the police and Daniel accepted, or you decided to surrender to the police and Daniel refused. Overall, you taught Daniel to do his best to follow the rules of society. Overall, you taught Daniel to put himself and his brother first. Yeah, I do think the choice was mainly between saving Sean or saving Daniel, but I don't know how I feel about it. You did the treasure hunt, yeah. Most people got closer to Karen, most people wrote a caring note, most people said farewell to everyone, most people hugged Karen, most people intervened for Diego, most people freed the Mexicans, most people didn't free the vigilantes and didn't hurt them either. Most people didn't ask Daniel to kill the officers. Yeah, decisions weren't compelling, really. Daniel was told off about the Scorpio and stopped messing with it. Yep. Okay. Daniel was concerned about hurting Officer Campbell. Wasn't concerned, okay. Daniel accepted that, okay, yeah. Daniel wasn't asked to kill the officers, yeah. Daniel knocked out the officers, most people. Daniel didn't have to lash out at the vigilantes. Okay. Is that the complete end, or is there like another scene coming? Thanks for playing and following Sean and Daniel on their journey. Discover more games around Life is Strange by going to the buy more page. No thank you. Right, so what I'll do now, I'll go and have a look at the other ending. I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to get the other ending because it said we taught Daniel to follow the rules of society. He might refuse to use his powers, right? So I might not even be able to look at the other ending, so this might be pointless. I feel a little bit regretful from that choice, but it might not have made a difference in the end. So I'll gather my overall thoughts after we've had a look at the other ending.
Whatever happens, always remember that you're Daniel Diaz.
I promise, Sean.
You can trust me. Please, get out of the car. Come on. There's no way out. This is our last
So,
warning. Listen up.
how does the story of the Wolf brothers end?
Step out of the car. Now.
Okay, I don't think this is going to work, but let's try.
They make it to the other side.
What? You sure?
Trust me, okay? Just get us through. Hold on tight.
I don't wanna! I'm not hurting anyone else!
Sean! Open fire! It's too late! They're shooting at us, Daniel! This is the only way! I'm sorry, Sean, but I have to go. What? What are you talking about?
Don't turn back for me.
Great.
I hope you'll be happy in Mexico.
That sucks, man. Right now I can't see all the endings. Yeah, I figured he'd do something like that. Ah, dear. So I can't see all the other endings without completely replaying the game differently. Even then I wouldn't know if it'd work. So this is the best of both worlds essentially, right? Sean gets to be free and Daniel gets to grow up in a normal place, right? It's going to be tough on Sean, but it's better than prison. So 4 different endings then. And they got a new puppy. It's a slightly different stuff. Yeah, got to spend some time with Karen. I don't know if this would be classed as the best ending then, because I don't know what life would be like for Daniel in Mexico. Yeah, his first car. So this is slightly different, at least this bit, but sucks that they didn't get to be together. But I guess following the rules of society, it's just like trying to teach him to be good. So would making him value themselves as brothers just mean being more violent and reckless? Maybe encouraging him to use his 6 years after the events at the bus. Only 6, okay, not 15. So Daniel will be 16 years old then. Why couldn't they have got some voice work for these bits, man? mean, really? Would it have cost you that much extra? He's got a tag on. So is he going to have to go to prison now? Daniel Diaz. Oh, way. That's supposed to be Sean. That didn't look anything like him. We're not going to get to see Sean. What? Oh man, I figured it'd happen just because of us following the rules of society. I didn't get to see Sean in Mexico. I mean, who thought that that'd be a satisfying way to end it, man? We got to see Sean when he came out of prison. Why couldn't we have just seen him with Cassidy and not just had a little Polaroid? Oh, I'm physically getting angry. It's just like, okay, so just a point of comparison, right? This is major spoilers for The Witcher 3, so you know, mute this now if you don't want to hear how things possibly end in that game. But so throughout the whole of The Witcher 3, you're playing as Geralt, right? And you're in pursuit of Cirilla, of Ciri, who's your adopted daughter. And sort of the main conclusion to the ending is more about Ciri than it is about Geralt. And there's even a bit where she says, "What would you know? You're silly. You're but a Witcher. This is the end of my story, not yours." And the way that they've just made that ending look is that it's all about Daniel, right? That the ending's more about the secondary character than it is about the character you've had agency over, which is Sean. But in The Witcher, Geralt still gets his own endings, his own paths and stuff. alongside all the different alternate endings that Ciri gets, right? But you still get the satisfying conclusions for Geralt, not just for her. Whereas this, it's like they've just given you all of the concluding points for Daniel, but none for Sean, and it's just not satisfying. Like, if you've tried to do a good job to get him to follow the rules and stuff, like, you've just been punished and got like a really weird mixed ending where, yeah, it makes that choice at the end not really a choice, because you've already set yourself on a path towards what's going to happen. So instead of actually the decision system they've put in place is actually made what they've done by having this sort of point scoring system of rules versus brothers kind of thing that they obviously had there, was that the choices in these final 2 episodes have been pretty meaningless because you've already set yourself on the path. Am I way off? Like, you're pretty much on rails by episode 4 and 5. You're already on rails. You can't really influence Daniel much more. So it feels like we've just played like a really linear ending, and that big choice at the end, it wouldn't have made any difference to Daniel. I mean, did they run out of budget? Could they not have done a more elaborate cutscene with some voice acting at the end there? You know, I understand that the original Life is Strange, the ending didn't have anything, but so much was said before the ending that you didn't need to in either the funeral scene or when they were leaving the town. But I just feel it just feels really unsatisfying. I need to see the other endings, but I can't play them because I just can't, can I? I just can't. I can't play the other endings unless I get like a really lucky dice roll. Okay, yeah, so I think I just need to maybe calm down a bit. Okay, guys, I've had a few days actually to kind of calm down, think about the ending, rewatch it a few times. Realised I was probably being a bit stressed out at the end. I don't know why. I was trying to understand why I was just a bit unsatisfied, I suppose, with the endings. Maybe it's because the sort of stress of the final choice. Like, I get bothered by choices like that. So I mean, maybe that was part of it, just the whole process of doing it. I have gone back. I have gone and watched all of the other endings. There are 7 endings or variations of endings, as I understand it. There's 4 major endings, and then there's some slight variations on them. I did record my reaction to those, but I don't really feel like the endings are kind of worth adding another 30 minutes to the video. So basically, the other 2 endings where Daniel ends up in Mexico in Puerto Lobos, I thought both of them were kind of bad, in terms of, not bad as in bad endings, but bad as in bad for Daniel. Obviously, the one where Sean dies and he has to survive on his own is very bad for him. But even the one where Daniel's with him and he opens the car body shop, that felt a little bit bad. Like he was having to live he didn't get to have a childhood and all that stuff. So that felt like a little negative as well. So in hindsight, I think of all the endings, the best one is where they get divided by country. So when you choose to cross the border, but Daniel doesn't want to. So Sean gets to go and Daniel gets to grow up with his grandparents. I think objectively, that is the best decision, because if Sean gets incarcerated, I think that's unfair on him. I think, realistically, you could show the authorities Daniel's power. It could just be an explanation that way. But the fact that Daniel just gets a free pass, I guess, is a little harsh on Sean. So I feel like he doesn't really deserve to be locked up because he didn't kill anyone. The only real crime he committed was escaping custody at the hospital, right? Assaulting the petrol station attendant isn't really a crime. It was more self-defense. He got abducted, right? He didn't burn down the church. The candles got knocked over. It wasn't anything that he'd done intentionally, and it was Daniel who knocked the candles over, right? And it was Daniel who knocked over the gas station attendant as well with his powers, right? So I think essentially everything so yeah, the only thing I think he could be incarcerated for, would legitimately incarcerated for, would be escaping federal custody at the hospital. Everything else is a much for muchness. He didn't actually do anything else. It was all Daniel. Everything else was Daniel. Every other crime. So yeah, and I don't, you know, Daniel had that little like, is it like a tag on his ankle? So that might mean he maybe is restricted to the house or something, or you know, he's on house arrest or something along those lines. Whereas Sean gets his freedom. So my main annoyance with the endings is I checked and I definitely said about how I felt like there was going to be a decision where we had to decide whether we were going to split up, and that's what I think would be best in the end. You know, where Daniel got to have a more normal childhood and Sean got to keep his freedom. And we didn't really get to choose that. Obviously, that decision results in that, but there was I don't think any person would have reasonably predicted that would have happened, that we'll decide to cross the border, but Daniel will refuse to use his powers. I don't think anybody would have predicted that or saw it coming. So ultimately, I think that's why the final decision felt very dissatisfying, whatever, because yeah, I think it really removed the sense of player agency from the final choice. Just to compare, I don't like comparing this too much to the first game, but it's going to happen. So just if you compare it to the final ending, to the ending in the first game, so it's, if you would have decided to sacrifice the Bay, let's say, instead of sacrificing Chloe, right? And then when you were about to do that, and then because of the way you played the game, Chloe then intervenes, and then let's say she just jumps off the cliff anyway, to kill herself because she doesn't want you to sacrifice the Bay because your relationship wasn't as close, and then you feel kind of cheated out of the decision, is what I mean. I understand that you can have consequences, and the way you play the game has consequences, but I really don't. And yeah, so that's why I think it feels a little dissatisfying, because the final choice wasn't much of a choice. We were kind of, I know I've already said, we were kind of on a set path already at this point. My final decision to pick surrender was based on the fact I didn't want Daniel to have to suffer, and it wouldn't have mattered either way. And I think hiding that kind of reality from the player is just kind of, it felt like the choice didn't mean anything, I think is what I'm trying to get at. So my original plan was I was going to make a separate video to discuss everything at the end, but because I'm not going to put in my reaction to all the alternate endings, because I just don't see the point now. I'm going to do a little summary and review of the whole game here. Just a quick point though on the alternate endings. I was severely annoyed that Lila was in one of them. I was really annoyed. That kind of made me even more angry, because there were only 2 opportunities to talk to Lila again, and both times the game framed that choice as being dangerous to your freedom and your safety. Like, if you do it, you were going to alert the police, you were going to put you and Daniel in danger, so don't do it. And because they framed it like that, I didn't do it because I was trying to protect them. And then she shows up in the ending that my first ending that I got with where he comes out of prison. She's there waiting for you. Does not ringing her and texting her those 2 times mean she's not your friend anymore? You know, your childhood best friend that you grew up with, just because of those 2 things. When you're on the run from the police, she couldn't possibly understand that, and that means she doesn't show up. I thought that was really, really cheap to cut that out for players who didn't ring her. I thought that was really cheap. And yeah, could Cassidy have not been there? I mean, yeah. So I'm gonna my overall thoughts on the whole game. So I made some notes, all right, just so I can keep this, on some sort of track. So I feel like the decision system overall was a bit hit and miss. I get what they tried to do, this was a very formative experience for Daniel, and you really had to be careful because this was going to shape the kind of person he was going to become. But I feel like it was a bit too definitive in a way, because it's less than a year, right, that they've been on the road, maybe 8 months, and while he's been through some harrowing experiences, it kind of makes you feel like, does the childhood he's had up until that point, does the upbringing that he's had with Esteban in a safe place does that have no bearing on his personality? Why does it all have to be defined by his time with Sean on the road, right? I understand that extreme experiences will have a bigger effect on a person. I'm well aware of that, but I feel like, yeah, having him turn into this murderous maniac purely because of what we've taught him is a little bit unrealistic. I feel like there will be voices of good still in his head from his life. He's not had an upbringing of pain and misery. He's had a really, despite not having a mother, but he's had a really happy home where he had people who loved him around him. And I think 8 months on the road, while it would have an effect on any human being, especially a child, I don't think it would turn him into that. But yeah, I think the choice system, I feel like the ending choice, they could have had more declarative choices, and I feel like you could have had more than 2 options. Yeah, I really feel like this final decision, I think it needed to be in our hands in its totality, similar to the first game, but we maybe needed a 3rd option, like try and cross the border together, try and surrender together, or try and split up. I feel like you should have put this really completely in the player's hands, rather than just kind of endings, but really they're just shaped by the point scoring morality system already. I'm just not sure. Yeah, maybe I'm missing something. Please, guys, fill me in. But I feel like the decision system was a bit hit and miss. I think they made some mistakes with that. I feel like every decision, some decisions should have been separate from it and should have been decisions in their own right. And then some decisions should be influenced by the point scoring system, and then you should have some decisions that are just decisions, that are decisions you make in the moment and happen exactly as you think they're going to happen, not a decision, but it's changed, it's twisted, he jumps out of the car instead of doing what you think he's going to do. Yeah. So yeah, I think you need a mix. I think they went too hard in the paint with the point scoring stuff. I think you needed some decisions that were just decisions in their own right and that weren't influenced by the system. So and I think that kind of reduced the emotional impact of the ending for me, because it didn't feel like it was my ending in a way. So other points for the game, the voice acting still of a really high quality, as it kind of needs to be. The two, I think there were 2 child actors, weren't they, of similar age to the characters who played Sean and Daniel, and well done to them. I don't know if it's if how much work they've done previously, but they did a good job, I feel. You know, I don't feel like they didn't go over the top with anything, and I feel like all of the voice actors in the game did a really good job, you know. So, you know, fair play to them with that. They've kept up the high quality of voice work that they've had in previous games. I mean, some stuff that you guys have mentioned in the comments would be the plot being a tad unrealistic in places, and it's always strange criticizing something that has a supernatural element to it for having unrealistic elements. But this is set in a real world, present day world, right? And a few of you have mentioned how the just the fact that they've gotten away from the police this whole time is a bit silly. That they definitely would have been caught much earlier. So I mean, yeah, you can say that, but I mean, you have to suspend your disbelief with a lot of fiction, and maybe just phrase it as, I mean, as I've said, I think already, you know, America's a big place. I feel like there are places to hide in America because it's so big. The law can only patrol so much space. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like there are more pockets of freedom, I suppose you'd call it, or where you can get away from the law in America a bit easier, just because it's just such a vast place. But well, that's a fair criticism, I suppose. I really, in terms of specifically to the game, as I've already said, I really didn't like what they did with Lila. Yeah, it was a really, if they wanted to make like an important choice with her, make the choice between her and Cassidy, right? Because I just really resent the way that I've missed out on the interactions with Lila, because I thought I was protecting Sean and Daniel by doing so, right? I think that's a really just a stupid way to do it. Whereas if you had to do it as in, let's say we had a chance to have a phone call when we were at the hospital, and we had one phone call, and it was before we were going to break out, and we could choose to ring Lila or Cassidy. I think that would be a more compelling decision, right? Because then you're making more of a choice as to who you're closer to, rather than just not ring her to protect yourself. And it seems like a really obvious thing then. So I really didn't appreciate that choice. I really like Cassidy and the relationship with her. You know, it felt like it was nice to have Sean have that kind of normal sort of teenage romance that he was on the edge of having back home with whatever that girl's name was back at home, before, you know, his life was going to be completely turned upside down, whether it was going to Mexico or going to prison or dying. It was nice for him to have that. Yeah, so I really liked Cassidy and their relationship. I did really like Finn until he did what he did, but you could kind of see it coming with the way he was, with him being really irresponsible and a bad influence on Daniel. People who are like that with kids, I feel like it's just a sign, really, that they're not just a bad influence on the child like that. They're a bad influence on themselves, if that makes sense. They just encourage them. They encourage themselves to do things that aren't in their own best interests. So I still stand by my stance that Finn was a bit of a moron, a bit of a scumbag, and really betrayed our trust by coaxing Daniel into trying to steal from them. So what else have I got? I just want to maybe just make a quick comment about the graphics of the game. I feel like they're not great. You know, I realise I'm not playing the game on PC, so I can't have a full opinion on this. But you know, I'm playing on a PS4 Pro, and they were just kind of unimpressive, in my opinion. You know, the facial animations are still quite stiff, lack a bit of variation. Some of the animations, I mean, Cassidy's walk, I remember, looked like she'd soiled herself a bit, and just some of the animations are pretty bad. And this is a game that is, you know, based on your attachment to characters, and and getting invested in that. And while graphics don't necessarily have anything to do with that, they can enhance things. Like in Until Dawn. Until Dawn had had really good motion capture and really good facial animations. And like if you just had some of that here, I think it would enhance things. And this engine is just so tired, man. This game for a game that's come out in 2019. This looks bad. If I'm being honest, for a game that's come out in 2019, this looks bad. And even if you still class this as an indie game, I'd still say this looks bad for an indie game. There's lots of indie games that have better animations, better visual styles than this, and the engine that they're using, yeah, they need to do something about it, because it's just a point of annoyance now. This still looks exactly the same as the first game. It really does. And the animations are exactly the same. There are no new animations here outside of the cutscenes, in my opinion. So, yeah, graphics engine needs to be thrown in the bin, in my opinion. Yeah, and I guess the other thing would be the political themes. I was neither really. I didn't think they were either good or bad, really, and it was just fairly obvious the points they were trying to make. That it was coming. The game was coming from a very hard. It was taking a very, I don't know, overtly progressive stance on it. And one thing is difficult when you do a game that's set in present day like this. It's very difficult to judge when it comes out, because I'm not American, but for people who are living in that environment and through those circumstances and all of that stuff, the opinion is difficult to be objective about in the moment. So it's difficult to judge whether they were too blatant with it or whether they were actually quite realistic with all the anti-immigration, the racism, the anti-Mexican border stuff, whether it was realistic or whether they were a bit on the nose with it, because you get more polarizing reactions from people on this kind of thing while we're living through it. Whereas in 10 years, in 20 years, when this period of time is resigned to history, you might look back at it differently, if that makes sense. So I'm reluctant to judge it either way, in terms of, I think that they could have been more subtle, and I think that they were a bit blatant with it, or to just say, yeah, it was dead on, that's exactly how it is. It's tough being a Mexican American. Everywhere you go, there's racists everywhere. And they tried to balance it out. They had plenty of people who were, that kind of hillbilly kind of sounding American, who ended up helping you fine. But they were pretty clear with the points they were trying to make. But as I've said, I'm not going to judge it either way. I like politics in games. Politics belong in everything, and most games have political elements in there, just not present day politics, which is why I think this might get a rise out of people, is because it's present day. Most popular games from all of your favorite games have political things in them, but it's just because a lot of them are in fictional settings, that it kind of floats over your head a little bit. But because this is set in present day America, it feels like they're making a real statement and commentary, when it really isn't much different than any kind of racism that's presented in other games. I know I reference The Witcher 3 all the time because it's my favorite game, but they touch on lots of notions of racism and xenophobia and homophobia and sexism throughout the game. But because it's set in a fictional high fantasy setting, it doesn't rile people up as much. Does that make sense? So I think that the politics in this, I don't think they're necessarily a bad thing. Things like this could always be done in a more subtle fashion, and I always prefer things in a more subtle fashion. But I don't think that they were out of line with what they did. I don't think that they were necessarily unrealistic. I think it's just because it's present day issues and events that they're referencing and touching on that it winds people up a little bit or makes them think that they're being too blatant with it. I think it's just because it's present day. I don't think that they were wrong or out of order for doing any of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it's like a kind of moot point in a way. I think that, you know, these issues are brought up in plenty of other games, but they're either set in either fictional settings or settings in the past, so it doesn't really get annoy people as much. But I suppose that could be seen as a mistake, in that way that I feel it's a lot more difficult to put present day politics in a present day setting than it is to do in a fictional or past or future setting. Yeah, and then I'll just try and in terms of the endings, you know, when I think back to the first game and how the endings were very powerful, really. The kind of, I had a very hollow feeling. Well, I guess I had a very similar feeling that I did with my original choice. When I saw the destroyed town and the girls were just leaving, I felt very hollow. I felt like I'd made an egregious mistake and that I'd just murdered a whole town full of people. And then when I watched the other ending, it was very emotional, watching Chloe's funeral and seeing all their time together sort of dissipate. And it was very sad. And then I felt very hollow watching Sean in prison, coming out of prison, and he just kind of missed. I mean, granted, he's coming out of prison at 32 or whatever age he would have been, around that age. He still has a whole life ahead of him. You know, he's missed a long time. He's been inside a long time, but you know, he didn't get a life. He wasn't in there. He's not in there for his whole life. So in a way, it's not the end of the world. It's horrible to miss your 20s, of course it is. But he still has a whole life ahead of him. And perhaps it just depends. Would you determine having the rest of your life from that age in America as a free person in America, perhaps feeling a bit more safe, knowing that your family's safe, being able to contact your family? Would that be better than having a life of freedom from the age of 17 in Mexico, where you're perhaps struggling to earn money, you're in a tougher socio-economic environment, and you cannot ever see your family unless they come to see you, and you can't outwardly contact them because you'll get arrested and likely face even longer away in prison. So yeah, it's like there's like an almost you know, which is worse in a way. So I understand that none of the endings are outwardly positive, and fair play to them for that. You can interpret every ending in a negative light. I still feel a heavier duty to Daniel just because he's a child. I feel like you should make the decision that benefits him the most. Which is why I picked surrender. But in terms of what was more satisfying to just see, I think seeing Sean with Cassidy on the beach, I wish they could have done a cutscene for that. I mean, really, could you not have just shown them on the beach? Every other ending had footage of Sean, right? Every other ending except for the one where he was dead. You know, you saw him come out of prison. You saw him at the garage, at the mechanics, their Diaz repair shop. You saw him there. Why couldn't we just have had a little footage of him with Cass? That would have been lovely, right? Not just the Polaroid. That wound me up a little bit. So overall, in terms of, so those are some objective points that I've just tried to make. But in terms of my overall feeling and enjoyment of the game, I think that they deserve credit for trying something drastically different to the first game. And obviously there are big similarities in terms of, you're playing as someone who's around 17, 18, 19, a formative years, they're going through a stressful experience, they've got a friend with a supernatural power and all that stuff. But the format of the game is very, very different, isn't it? First game, we're rooted in one place, we get to know everybody there, we get to learn about the social dynamics, the relationships that you have with all the people there get to grow and change and develop. Whereas here we're constantly on the move, and I've said it a few times, but it makes it feel like a bit like the Walking Dead series, because we're always on the move. Each episode is in a different place with new people, with new dynamics, with new circumstances, and what that does is you don't get attached in the same way that I feel like you did in the first game. In the first game, because there's a plot going on, there's a murder mystery, there's all sorts of things going on, of course, but there's a lot of downtime to focus on the relationship and the histories of the characters, and I feel like you get a lot more attached to Chloe, to Max, to Kate, to Joyce, to everyone in the game, more just because we're not running. And I think that does have a negative effect on how attached you feel to these characters. It didn't have the same kind of hit on me, the endings, and I don't really. I feel like it was a good game. I don't feel like it was. I feel like ultimately, I don't think that this was a particularly memorable game. It's enjoyable. There were some good choices. There were some compelling choices, but there were a lot less. There were a lot fewer compelling choices than the first game, I feel. But they've tried something different. I think that the main thing that's let them down here is the point scoring system. They needed to have some decisions that were separate from it, that had no influence of Daniel's got a high morality score, he's got a low morality score, they've got a good relationship. This point scoring stuff is fine, but not for every bloody decision, right? Not for the main ending decision. I feel like that's a misstep. I feel like you need to put this in the player's hands entirely and not lock them in so much. Yeah. I have to say I didn't like Daniel too much. The whole bratty kid thing kind of annoyed me a lot of the time. And while I felt responsible for him at the end, I would have felt responsible for almost any child in that circumstance. So it's almost kind of separate from him. The most interesting parts of the game were when we were rooted in one place and we got to get to know people. So that would be episode 2 with Claire and Stephen. We really got to know about them, about their lives, about their relationship with Karen, about their relationship, about how Claire was really religious and really quite stern, and Stephen, he was a bit more laid back. He loved his trains, he let her be the bossy boots and didn't tell her everything, and they were still upset about Karen, their only daughter. They didn't want to just forget about her. How they were loyal to Sean and Daniel, that stuff being rooted in one place and then being on the farm was really good as well. We got to learn about a whole cast of characters there, about Finn, Cassidy, and all of the guys there, Jake, and all the other people there, Ingrid, and I'm forgetting names, but just about how it was like a bunch of misfits really who'd gone through a lot of struggles in their life. A lot of them had family that had broken down tumultuous relationships with their parents, with their family, who'd sort of disowned them in a way, or they'd been kicked out, or they'd left, and we'd all sort of gathered, to form they'd all gathered to form their own family. But the problem was that all of these things that you built up and you felt more attached to were just sort of kind of tossed away at the end of each episode, right? And I think that's ultimately why I felt a little bit less attached to the whole story as a whole, because characters were just being thrown away. Not thrown away, but they were out of sight most of the time. And then I think that puts a lot of pressure on the relationship between Sean and Daniel. And because Daniel was a bit bratty, a bit arrogant at times. Maybe this game would have been better if Daniel was a few years older. Maybe if Sean was 17 and Daniel was maybe 13, 14. Maybe it would have been a bit more interesting, because it would just give him a bit more awareness, wouldn't it? A bit more intellectual awareness. Daniel, that is. So that maybe your interactions with him wouldn't be so restricted, if that makes sense. Because every time you have to interact with Daniel, it's in the back of your mind, like, I need to teach him a good lesson, I need to be a good influence, I need to show him the right way or the wrong way, or I need to, like, every time you talk to him there needs to be a lesson there, and it kind of ruins the freedom of these interactions, doesn't it? That because the interactions, like saying, like in the first game, whenever Chloe and Max, or Chloe and Max and any other character that was important, they were all usually of the same age, or they were a bit older. The conversation is more of a two-way street. The conversations with Daniel don't feel like a two-way street, do they? It's like you're sending information to him that's going to permanently change who he is and his brain. And while that's fine some of the time, I think every time you talk to him, that kind of pressure that you're affecting the way he's going to behave kind of spoils it a little bit. So maybe he could have done with being a bit older. But I can't really think of much else coherent to say. Please let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I look forward to hearing your opinions on different things, from the plot to the characters to the decision system to the design. Please let me know if I've missed anything, if I've annoyed you with anything that I've just said. I don't mind. It's I think it's a good game. I don't think it's anywhere near as memorable as the first one, unfortunately, and I think that's a consequence of the things I've just said. The decision system being a bit too them sticking to it too harshly. Some decisions needed to be decisions separate from that system, and some needed to use that system. Not all of them needed to be dependent on that. I think the way the game was moving along was affected how attached you felt to some of the characters. One point I have, last one more point. The episodes were too short. Because we were in a new place every episode, these episodes were too short. Each episode was, it depends how you play and how much you explore. I feel like I explore, like, try and find everything and click on everything. I feel like, so for me, episodes were 3 to 4 hours, like, at the most. And some people would have got through in 2 hours. I feel like that's too short. To get really attached to these characters, I feel like each episode should be around the 6-hour mark. Which sounds ridiculous, but you just need more conversational stuff. And I think that's what this game does really well, or what it just did well. I think, we're 3 installments in now, and I feel like Before the Storm and this, they haven't really gone above and beyond what they did in the first game, or really progressed anything. I think when you compare, I know Before the Storm's a spin-off, it's not the same company, blah, 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 but it's still part of this franchise. Before the Storm and Life is Strange 2, I don't think that either of them do anything better than the first game. If you're going to compare, really. Graphics are a smidge better, but not really. The plot, the relationships, the decisions, I don't think any of them are really better than the first game, and I think that is a problem. You need to progress, really, and they could do that by making a longer game, couldn't they? Like I said, longer episodes, more episodes. Who says they have to stick to 5 episodes? They could do 10. They could do 6, 7. They could do more. Do you know what I mean? I definitely feel like I spent more time with the first game than I did with this. Yeah. And so, other thing I just wanted to maybe talk about is what could they do next if there is to be a Life is Strange 3? Like I said, can we just give it a different adjective? This could be Life is, I don't know, Life is bizarre, and the next game could be Life is weird, right? But Life is Strange 3, I hope that they do another big change. In terms of what they could change, I mean, one thing that they could potentially change, they could decide to tell the story of some older characters. You know, they don't have to stick to these teenage characters, maybe. I mean, this wasn't necessarily a teenage story. It was a very grown-up story that involved a teenager and a child, right? There's the first game involved sort of 2 people on the verge of adulthood, but were still sort of 18, 19. So if you were going to maybe diverge from this, you know, because they've made big changes from the first game to this game, could a third game, could you tell the story of perhaps 2 people middle age, maybe in their 40s, maybe my age, like if they were 30, maybe mid-20s, you know? Are they going to really feel pressure to revisit Max and Chloe now? I mean, after the Easter egg they put in and how everybody still yearns to play those characters, are they going to crumble to that? I mean, I feel like if they were going to do that, they would have done it for this game. But yeah, are they going to, you know, are they going to maybe go to a different country? I know, I think a few of you told me that it is a French company. Maybe they could do a European story, not necessarily one in America. Yeah, could they tell a story somewhere else? And could they change the age of the characters? Could we have characters who are maybe a bit more defined? And I think that when you have characters who are a little bit older, you can really put in more nostalgia and history into their backstory, which is what I feel like what Dontnod does well is, you know, create all the orbiting information around the characters, you know, flesh them out with, you know, with flaws and mistakes and previous experiences and relationships in the past that you just learn about through playing the game. You know, what would you like to see in a new game that isn't like a sequel, a sequential game? You know, that one that that has nothing to do with Max and Chloe, and one that has nothing to do with Sean and Daniel. What kind of thing do you think would suit them best? Would it be a story that's rooted in one place? I think that would be best. You could still have some traveling like you did in Arcadia Bay, but just more like, I think sticking in one city or one town still works best, where all your relationships are still sort of around you, and you know, kind of know that you might see a lot of the characters again. I think that works best. Okay, guys, I'm chatting on a bit now, so I'll leave that one there. I hope you've enjoyed Life is Strange 2. I've enjoyed it, but I think there are problems, but I've enjoyed it overall. Some decisions were really good. So let me know what you think. As ever, please let me know any recommendations for anything you'd like to see me play next. I'm still pretty knee-deep in Nier Automata at the minute. That is kind of occupying a lot of my thoughts most of the time, and that I'm looking forward to playing. But in terms of what I'm thinking about playing next, I'm still, you know, I'd class this as my indie title, and then Nier is my sort of more mainstream title. So the next indie title that will be replacing this, probably in the new year. I've got a few. I mean, things that I actually really want to play would be Rhyme, Observation, and Observer. Those 3 are the kind of indie titles that I'm looking at. I am still trying to play my Dark Souls playthrough. I've recorded quite a lot of it. I just haven't edited it yet, so I'll probably be trying to do that as well. But please, you know, let me know any more recommendations. If you have any critiques for me, is my sound mix all right? You know, any of that kind of stuff. in sort of video length and all the kind of objective stuff, just let me know. I'd just criticize me as much as possible. That's what I like. So I hope you've enjoyed it, guys. Please leave me a thumbs up if you did, and just remember, everybody, never trust an on crate. Right, I'll see you in whatever's next.